Here is the last of these abominations that we call the prequels. Revenge of the Sith. At least this title is a little bit more reminiscent of the original titles and makes sense with the movie at least. And at least there's more lightsaber battles. It's almost as if George Lucas was like, okay, well, the politics stuff didn't work. Let's just fight each other. Anyway, Revenge of the Sith. Let's talk about why it's terrible. Hayden Christensen. I talked a lot in my Attack of the Clones review about how everything in the movie just looked terrible. Attack of the Clones looked fucking awful. And this movie looked awful too. But the landscapes of it, especially at the beginning, like the very beginning sequence, the landscapes look alright, and anything in a wide shot looks alright. But anything in a medium or a close-up looks shitty. Endless plot holes in Revenge of the Sith. If I tried to go through any of the plot holes, I could be here all night. Revenge of the Sith, honestly, for a long time, I thought it was the prequel that was actually alright, like pretty good. But I realized it's pretty bad. It's almost just as bad as the other two. It's such a messy movie. It feels like an incompleted movie, actually. It feels like a movie that didn't go through the editing process. The first half of this movie, you can actually skip. You can skip right to when Anakin is getting the visions at the start. That can be the beginning of the movie. All the stuff before then doesn't matter at all. Let's get into it. What are the issues with the movie? There is no way that the marriage between Anakin and Padme is secret. There's no way. They're not even discreet about it. General Grievous is so comical. Why is he in this movie? At least George Lucas tried to put some emotion in the movie. Didn't work, but he tried. And Anakin's eventual transition to the dark side is terribly done. The foundation for the transition to the dark side has always been there. It's always been that he has been motivated by fear, and that will be his transition to the dark side. But the execution of the actual transition scene is terrible. George Lucas has went on record saying that he wants the transition to be a thing where Anakin thinks that he's right, and Anakin thinks that he's doing a really virtuous thing, and he thinks that his point of view is correct. But there's no way that he actually thinks that. He's acting so stupidly. And the lines of dialogue that he has, there's no way that he actually believes those dialogue lines. I guess it was fine, but the thing is, it just could have been so much better. That could have been such an amazing scene. I can only imagine sitting in the theater if I was alive in 1977, and I guess 1980 because that was when the twist was. I can only imagine being in that theater and thinking of a scene that would happen where that happened to Anakin. Honestly, it's probably much better in my head than it was in Revenge of the Sith. Yoda spends much of the movie on Kashyyyk. For what reason? Chewbacca? Yeah, Yoda and Chewbacca are like really good buddies. What a small world. I really highly doubt that in any multitude of clones could have taken out the Jedi as easily as they did in that montage of the clones killing all the Jedi. Speaking of those scenes, the adventures that they were on in the planets that were so diverse, even just the little bit of time that we had before the clones turned on the Jedi, that was more interesting and of adventure than all of the prequels. That one scene with the very implicit suggestion of Anakin killing kids, that doesn't belong in Star Wars, man. That's dark. And I'm not against the fact that he did it. It's just that it's in the movie. That's not a Star Wars movie, man. The character of Senator Organa becomes a really big character all of a sudden, and it feels like it was unedited from the first draft where George Lucas is like, oh yeah, Leia was an Organa. Put Organa in there. Why is C-3PO even in the prequels? He doesn't do anything. I talked about Anakin and Padme's secret marriage earlier and how unconvincing it was, but it never came back in any way. Like movies, they set up plot points like that the characters don't want to come to fruition, and then they do come to fruition, and stuff happens. The secret marriage, they don't want to come to fruition. Obi-Wan kind of talks about it. I've watched a lot of featurettes and interviews of George Lucas, and he said that in the prequels he wanted Anakin to be a victim and to feel like the victim of what was going on. But Anakin's not the victim in this movie. He's stupid. He makes a bunch of stupid decisions in a row, and I can't root for this guy. I gotta be like, you know what, dude? Honestly, you had it coming. Even when he's getting burned, like, I guess there's a fraction of me that, like, is the human and is like, oh, that sucks. But still, he's getting burned, and I'm like, dude, he told you not to jump. He had the high ground. That was your mistake, man. Much has been talked about like the final scenes between Anakin and Padme and the terrible dialogue in there. And the drama between them is bad. But honestly, the drama with Padme herself is alright. I have talked about how Padme is actually my favorite character in the prequels. I think she's actually a pretty kick-ass character. She's alright, and her drama in the movie is actually kind of heart-wrenching. Like, it gets there. The thing is, Anakin went so bad, but Padme never really realized that or accepted that, and that's pretty heart-wrenching. Like, she was on there on the ground after he choked her, and I was like, oh, poor Padme. I was only on her side. And the Mustafar fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin. It's a good fight. I like the intensity of the fight, and I like some parts of the fight. But it was way too staged. It felt way too much like a dance. It felt way too much of a cooperative experience. 75% of the fight, I was like, are these guys even trying to hit each other or kill each other? And it's not in the way of, like, Obi-Wan having this doubt whether or not he actually wants to do damage to Anakin, and Anakin feeling the same. It's not in that way, but it looks like the second rehearsal of something that was meant to be like a stage play. I guess I don't mean to say that it was under-rehearsed. The specifics of the fight, it's way too choreographed. And it gets really ridiculous. Like, it goes on and on and on and on, and the circumstances keep getting heightened and heightened and heightened, and it's just ridiculous. But the great thing about the final fights between Yoda and Darth Sidious and Anakin and Obi-Wan is that the set pieces are pretty good. The entire set piece of Mustafar, though I talked about how it got ridiculous, it's a good set piece. It's a good planet. And the set piece of, like, the Senate room that Yoda and Darth Sidious fought in is a pretty good set piece, even though the fight was really underwhelming. Gotta be honest, the lightsaber fighting skills of Ian McDiarmid, who plays Darth Sidious, are not good. And they should have used a stunt double way more. Holy crap, that scene between him and Sam Jackson where they were fighting, that was a terrible fight. By the way, Sam Jackson, terrible acting in this whole trilogy. Revenge of the Sith is the most frustrating experience out of all the 3 prequel films because there's so much more potential for things to go on, and George Lucas even tried to add some more emotion to what was going on. The sequences are pretty dynamic, and the character interplay is pretty dynamic, but the execution of it all sucks. If some of these scenes near the end were delivered with the essence and the spirit of the original movies, they would have been fantastic. Or even with the spirit of a good filmmaker. Every time I watch Revenge of the Sith, it feels like less of a real movie to me. Every time I watch it, I gawk at the fact that it even exists. It feels like it's made up. Revenge of the Sith pisses me off. Yes, it's better than Attack of the Clones. It's honestly probably the best of the prequels. It still sucks, though, and it's frustrating. This one pisses me off so much. The prequels are just such a feeble attempt to recreate magic. There's no magic in the prequels.
Star Wars Episode 3, thank God these are over. I mean, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith gets a 3 out of 10.
I'm so glad that I'm done reviewing the prequels. On some level, I had a pretty good time just, like, making fun of them. But I'm glad that I get to watch some good Star Wars movies now. And hopefully The Force Awakens will be included in that. Sincerely thank you to anyone who has watched all 3 of my prequel reviews, because I know that they're a bit arduous and hard to get through. And everything about the prequels has already pretty much been said. I tried to offer some new things. What I'm trying to say is thank you to the fans. To the many, 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 many fans. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all my life.